Hit that like button and subscribe if you love the art of the perfect spiral. Because once you understand how Peyton Manning did it, you'll never see American football the same way again. Under the floodlights of Lucas Oil Stadium, Peyton Manning stands tall and still the crowd hums. But his eyes are elsewhere, scanning, dissecting, calculating. His right hand rests lightly on the ball, fingertips feeling the laces like a pianist over ivory keys. The play clock ticks down. The defense shifts, Manning points, calls an audible, the crowd roars. And yet the moment feels quiet, almost surgical. Then, with a fluid flick of his wrist, the football spins off his fingers, cutting through the night like a guided missile. A perfect spiral, that right there, is the essence of quarterback mastery, and it all starts with something deceptively simple: the grip. Most fans see the end result, the dart to the end zone, the perfect timing with Marvin Harrison, the calm precision under pressure, but the hidden secret behind every Peyton Manning throw, behind every tight spiral that carved through NFL defenses for nearly 2 decades, begins with how he held the ball. The basic grip technique, as unglamorous as it sounds, is the foundation of elite quarterback play. It's what separates a wobbling pass from a spiral that slices through wind, rain, and chaos. Manning's grip wasn't just about mechanics, it was about control, both physical and psychological. Watch closely in slow motion, his throwing hand positioned near the back third of the ball, index finger just off the tip, middle and ring fingers resting precisely along the laces, thumb tucked softly underneath, the non-throwing hand merely a guide. No tension, no wasted motion. It's the setup for something poetic, the seamless transfer of energy from shoulder to elbow to wrist to fingertip. This isn't just muscle memory, it's football philosophy. Manning believed every great throw started before the snap, in posture, in breath, in the way his hand felt the ball. You can't throw what you can't feel, he once said. And that's where the grip becomes more than a technique, it becomes a language. Think back to Super Bowl 41, Miami 2007, rain falling, field slick, nerves high. Quarterbacks live and die by their grip in conditions like that. But Manning, he was unbothered. He adjusted, slightly shifting his fingers deeper along the laces, increasing contact area for stability, allowing the ball to spin true even in the wet. Every throw that night, including the 53-yard strike to Reggie Wayne that turned momentum, came off his hand in a perfect spiral, defying the rain that ruined so many others. That wasn't luck. That was repetition meeting instinct. Peyton's grip and throw mechanics were a masterclass in efficiency. He didn't have Patrick Mahomes' cannon or Josh Allen's raw velocity, but his ball had something arguably more lethal. Consistency. His motion was short, compact, mechanically pure, from youth camps to NFL Sundays. Manning emphasized one truth: you don't overpower the football, you guide it. This principle is embedded in every layer of American football technique. The great quarterbacks, from Montana to Brady, know that throwing isn't about strength, it's about sequence. Manning embodied this. His feet were the engine, his hips the transmission, and his grip the steering wheel. But here's where the artistry deepens. The grip, to Manning, wasn't isolated. It connected directly to his ability to read defenses. When he adjusted his hands on the ball pre-snap, he wasn't just getting comfortable, he was disguising his intentions. Sometimes he'd hold it higher, ready for a quick slant. Other times he'd let it rest lower on his hip, baiting the linebackers into thinking it was a handoff. His fingers became an extension of his mind. One of the most famous examples came the 2006 AFC Championship game against the Patriots. It was 3rd and long, 4th quarter. The Colts trailing, Manning stepped up to the line, recognized New England's disguised cover 2 in a heartbeat. He audibled, Omaha, Omaha, shifting protection and receivers' routes on the fly. The defense adjusted, but too late. Manning's grip tightened subtly, wrist angled for a quicker release. The ball came out in under 2.5 seconds, spiraling perfectly to Dallas Clark. On a crossing route, first down, momentum shift. That drive would define a legacy. That moment, like countless others, illustrates how the basic grip technique underpins advanced NFL strategy. A proper grip means a faster release, a truer spiral, and most critically, time. In the NFL, milliseconds mean touchdowns or turnovers. Manning's grip allowed him to command that fraction of a second to lead receivers into windows no one else could see. And make no mistake, this wasn't genetic talent. Manning was a technician. He trained his hands relentlessly, throwing hundreds of balls after practice, focusing purely on spiral tightness and release speed. Coaches and teammates recall how he'd test different lacing pressures, even experimenting with glove textures and humidity conditions, searching for micro improvements. He threw like a scientist, said Tony Dungy. Every throw was an experiment in control. For young quarterbacks studying football fundamentals, this is where the lesson hits home. Grip defines feel, and feel defines confidence. A quarterback unsure of his hold is a quarterback already defeated. Manning's pre-snap ritual. The way he spun the ball once, tapped it twice, reset his fingers, wasn't superstition, it was calibration. He was aligning touch, torque, and trust all at once. If you slow down his throw frame by frame, you see biomechanics meeting artistry. As he rotates his torso, his wrist snaps just milliseconds before release, creating that trademark tight spiral. It's aerodynamic perfection, less air resistance, more distance, cleaner trajectory. The ball cuts through the air with that mesmerizing spin that every coach dreams of teaching and every defender dreads. But perhaps what separates Peyton Manning most from the rest isn't just how he threw, but why he threw the way he did. His grip was born from necessity. In college at Tennessee, his hand size was often debated, smaller than average for NFL standards. Instead of viewing it as a weakness, he refined his technique to maximize surface contact. The result, a grip that produced one of the most consistent spin rates in NFL history. His passes weren't always the fastest, but they were almost always the cleanest, arriving exactly where they needed to, precisely when they needed to. And that precision bled into everything else: audibles, timing routes, leadership. Manning's control over the ball mirrored his control over the game. Every pre-snap adjustment, every subtle cadence change, every delayed hand signal, all of it flowed from the same philosophy. Mastery begins with detail. Even his rivals admired it. Tom Brady once admitted in an interview that when studying film, you could tell when Peyton was going to throw before the defense could. Just by how confidently he gripped the ball, it looked inevitable. That inevitability, that sense that Manning knew what was coming, defined his greatness. When you talk about advanced passing mechanics, you're really talking about understanding cause and effect. Manning knew that every millimeter mattered. The distance between his fingers, the angle of his wrist, the timing of his hip rotation. To him, throwing wasn't motion. It was sequence, and the grip was step one. This is why his game aged so gracefully. Even when his arm strength declined in Denver, his fundamentals didn't. Watch the 2013 season when he threw for a record 55 touchdowns. Many of those throws, especially the deep posts to Demaryius Thomas, were masterclasses in precision over power. His grip allowed him to compensate for velocity loss with tighter spin and better placement. That's technique triumphing over time. Beyond mechanics, Manning's grip reflected leadership in football. The way he held the ball, steady, deliberate, confident, symbolized how he held his team. He was the ultimate field general, commanding not through raw charisma, but through preparation and precision. When teammates saw that, spiral, tight, clean, inevitable, they trusted it, they trusted him. In the end, Peyton Manning's grip technique is more than a lesson in how to throw a football. It's a metaphor for how to approach the game itself, with intelligence, patience, and respect for fundamentals. It reminds us that American football, for all its violence and spectacle, is also a game of grace and rhythm. You can talk about blitz reads, coverage disguises, or route trees all day, but without the foundation, the grip, the feel, the connection between quarterback and ball, none of it matters. Manning understood that better than anyone. He turned the most basic act in football into an art form, one that balanced mechanics with mind, repetition with revelation. So the next time you watch a quarterback release a spiral that seems to defy gravity, remember, somewhere in that motion lives Peyton Manning, the man who showed that perfection begins at the fingertips. Because in football, like in life, mastery hides in the fundamentals, and nobody ever mastered them quite like number 18.